to the Afternoon Sports Drive here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network on this wonderful Friday afternoon as we get you into your weekend here. You're at the right spot. A lot of football coming up in the weekend, and we're going to dive into that here momentarily. First, though, live today from Coney Island over here in Stillwater on the Strip, and it's going to be Party Central here tomorrow, with Oklahoma State being on the road for the first time in Boise State, and the game doesn't kick off till 8 o'clock. They're going to have the watch party here at Coney Island. There's TVs in the Coney Bar, TVs in the Coney Garden, TVs in the Coney restaurant area. Just about everywhere you turn, you're going to be able to find the game here. So see the Cowboys take on Boise State Saturday night here at Coney Island, and Triple Play Sports Orange Nation Game Day is going to be live. I'll be back here tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock for the Furniture Showcase pregame show. So come on out and hang out with me for a little while, for a couple hours, and we preview and get you ready for Oklahoma State and Boise State. Patrick Wheeler here with you on this Friday edition, along with my guy back in the studio, Levi Peckinpah's rocking and rolling. Levi, what is up, man?
Man, you know what? It's another day in paradise. I've actually got all of my stuff prepped for tonight, so we smooth sailing. We good to go.
There you go. Yeah, you got to keep working tonight. I get the night off. How about that?
Yeah, you get the night off. You get a little break before we get into district play. But Newkirk will be going on the road one more time. They will be playing the Crescent Tigers tonight at Crescent. So I'm very interested to see how that's going to go. Can't wait to call it. I'll do a little shout out. It's at 99.3 KLOR. Since you don't have a game tonight, we'll throw it over my way a little bit. But I'm excited for that, but before we get to any of that, I'm excited to talk about a lot of our NFL predictions, and really, I'm really ready to get into Thursday Night Football. I want to talk a little bit about how that broke down, and the New York Chokers were able to choke away a game against the Washington football team.
And we absolutely will dive into that, too. It was a crazy game last night. We're about to give you our final Oklahoma State, Boise State picks preview, gambling picks in just a minute. And then, like Levi said as well, hour number 2, we'll give you our Week 2 NFL picks to get you ready for Sunday coming up. A lot of football here to get to on the show. So, Levi, as we know, first road trip of the season for Oklahoma State. It's certainly a different environment. You know, it's just you're out there in Idaho. You're out there on the blue turf. It's probably not a state. Like, if you could pick a state on the map and say, hey, where do you think you guys will end up playing college football this year? It probably wouldn't be Idaho. So it's a different feel, no doubt. And there's been a lot of talk, about is this potentially the toughest game Oklahoma State will face in the non-conference schedule? And I think there's reason to make that argument. The main thing that is going against the Broncos right now is they don't run the football very well at all. And when you're trying to do that against an Oklahoma State defense that is seasoned and very good at stopping the run for the most part as well, that's not a great recipe for success. So when you're Boise State, you're going to end up asking your quarterback to do a ton, your receivers to do a ton, because it's just been a brutal go for them on the ground overall this season. So much so, Levi, how about this? 6th worst in the FBS with 2.24 yards per attempt. That's pretty bad. They can't really move the football on the ground. And again, you look at the defenses they faced. UCF, okay. UTEP, obviously not very good. And now Oklahoma State. So it's probably safe to say this will be the toughest defense that they will face so far this season. So they're going to have to figure out a way to run the football, because I'm not sure, you're asking your QB coming in right now at Hank Bachmeier, who has certainly got a good arm. He's 12-3. He's the starting QB. 63% of his passes have been completed. So he's got that rolling for him. But I don't know if you don't have a guy like George Holani, the leading running back, putting yards on the ground for you, there's potential for mistakes to be made by a guy like Bachmeier. And bottom line for me, looking at this game, once again, and this is now three weeks in a row, I'm having to talk about and immediately go to, well, the defense is basically going to win us this game. That's where I am with it. If the offense had showed us more in the first couple of games, we'd be feeling a lot better about it. We'd be, thinking, hey, they're going to definitely be able to move the ball. But they've had their ups and downs, man. It's safe to say, turbulent start and that's probably even being kind to the way that they've started out on offense. So hopefully this for them is a game where they can kind of get that rolling, get back into the groove, because it's sneaking up on us, Levi. If they don't get it done this week, I mean, Kansas State's going to be here before we know it. And Big 12 play, as we know, it's going to be a gauntlet. There's a lot of teams minus Oklahoma and then everybody else really at this moment. So it's all up for grabs. But they have to be ready to go starting Big 12 play, and I think that starts tomorrow with Boise State.
I completely agree, and you're talking about the problems in the run game for Boise State. I hope you brought a mirror, because that's the same exact problem that you're dealing with here at Oklahoma State, is not being able to get anything going in the run game. It's the same things for both these teams. It's, for some reason, your offensive line is really bad and not able to get any type of movement whatsoever in the run game. You're just kind of lucky that we're not. You got to give a lot of things to Spencer Sanders, because if he didn't have that big breakout run, we're probably sitting right next to Boise State in that average per carry range where Boise is. It's one of the things where you kind of go, all right, for which team, who's got the better what? For Boise, I think they have the better QB in Bachmeier, because every time Spencer Sanders has had the opportunity to prove himself, he just has not been able to live up to it, or whenever the opportunity is given. He's had one chance to prove himself. He's had multiple chances, but one, he lived up to it in Miami, but besides that, he hasn't been able to hit those heights that we've needed him to hit. But then you look over for Oklahoma State, and the place we go to is the defense. The defense is the thing that is going to drive us and hopefully put us in the best position possible. It's just, I'm wondering how this team is going to handle a team like Boise State, where it just seems like, yeah, they're not great at the run game, but they are all out in the passing game. You're going to need to make sure that Christian Holmes, you're going to need to make sure that some of these other CBs, they continue to step up, because we've seen them step up over these past couple games, but this to me is the true testing point, because Bachmeier has an arm and he's got a load of weapons that aren't afraid to go deep.
Yeah, that's what's beneficial to a guy like him, is he certainly has his weapons. Khalil Shakir is an All-Mountain West first-teamer back in 2020. You got C.T. Thomas, who's another star. 39 straight games with a catch for him, so he's obviously been involved for quite a while now. Those are just a couple of guys to keep an eye on. But I think you're correct as well. You look at Oklahoma State and say, this is also a team that they kind of go as the run game goes. We said that a bunch this offseason. Hey, you've got receivers that are young and clearly talented, but none of that really blossoms and comes to fruition for these guys until you're moving the ball on the ground. And I know that has been the central focus through these 3 weeks, from Missouri State to Tulsa to now. It's how do we improve this run game, because it has to get fixed. We, all offseason long, Levi, we detailed how deep this running back room was. And I don't think that there's any question that it's not deep anymore, but you are kind of surprised by some of the performances you've seen. Jalen Warren's taking over. I think he's probably going to get the majority of the touches here in this one against Boise State, based off what he did last week against Tulsa. L.D. Brown hasn't really produced it all on the ground. He had the big punt return, but he hasn't done much on the ground for you yet. And we thought he was going to take over based off what he did last year, filling in, for Chuba when he wasn't in there. He played phenomenal. Then this year, he looks like he's just kind of stuck in a rut at the moment, which is not how you want to start off your last season. And then you got Des Jackson, who, again, we can all probably agree should be afforded a few more carries here and there. I think he's a really good weapon that is not being used enough right now in this offense. And then Dom Richardson just kind of complements it all. So those are 4 guys that you can see get touches at any time. But until they start using that and getting those touches and making them effective, then you're not going to have as much continuity, as much rhythm. And a guy like Spencer Sanders needs that to happen. I've said that since I've seen Spencer Sanders. Clearly, he needs a run game to work to help him out, to set him up. It was kind of like last night, right? We see Daniel Jones. It reminds me of Daniel Jones. He is also a good rushing quarterback, but he needs the run game to really succeed for him to be able to build off that. He's not the type of QB that you're going to say, hey, please save us because we can't run the football. It just usually doesn't work that way. And honestly, that's the same for Spencer Sanders that I see too. You've got to have the guys on the ground running, including him, making plays, and then build off of that and incorporate some of that play action that we talked about this week as well. So it all goes back to that again, and I know, as you know, Levi, that's been one of the focuses big time through these first 3 games is, hey, until we get this going on the ground, We have to hope and pray that we find a way to get it done through the air consistently, which is never a guarantee with this offense.
Yeah, especially if you compare Boise State to Oklahoma State, we just don't have that veteran leadership at that wide receiver spot. Yes, you have Tay Martin, but he hasn't been able to get a whole lot of reps in. Hopefully, he will be back this game. But yeah, when you don't have anything consistent in the run game, it definitely hurts. I think, though, you comparing Spencer Sanders to Daniel Jones, Daniel Jones gave it his all. He did. He did something that Spencer Sanders, I just feel like, hasn't done, and he tried to put the team on his back. And if the defense could just help out in some moments, then Daniel Jones would have pulled off the hero ball carry, which I haven't seen Spencer Sanders try to do that yet, because every time he's done that, we've had interceptions, we've had fumbles, half heart attacks. It's been kind of crazy when it's trying to put Spencer Sanders as the lead guy, which that's just kind of Spencer Sanders at this point. So many ups and so many downs. And yeah, you're going to be relying on him a lot. It's the same thing kind of like, again, going back to the Giants. Daniel Jones is put in a lot of bad situations half the time because that offensive line is bad. And unfortunately for Oklahoma State, we're put in a lot of situations because that offensive line is pretty bad. Because sometimes they can pass block well, sometimes it's Swiss cheese. Run blocking, you might be able to occasionally get a decent run. Half the time, it's a 2 or 3 yard loss. That offensive line is not consistent. I'm wanting Hunter Woodard to come back, and I want to see if that helps anything. Yeah. I truly don't know if it will, though. I think that even with Hunter Woodard back, this might just prove to be a really bad offensive line, and you're going to have to rely more and more on Spencer Sanders and hope he kind of develops into what Daniel Jones was last night, and just being able to put the team on his back and try with all of his might.
Yeah, I should have compared, and this isn't the first time I've compared Spencer Sanders to Daniel Jones, but more so in his overall career compared to last night. Last night was just a little bit of a different Daniel Jones. Like you said, he kind of had that spark lit underneath him. And we've seen that a little bit at times from Spencer, but we just have to have that consistency, because and I know it's the second game back, so hopefully we can chalk that up. I'd love to be coming on Monday, Levi, talking about it. Hey, remember that first game we saw some of those little mistakes and things? Well, clearly that was just a week one thing, and look at him, he's improved, and he knew what he did wrong, he's fixed it, and they got to win against Boise State. That's the hope. So
that would. I mean,
let's take a look at our final picks here, as well as our gambling picks. So the line opened up. Boise State was 4.5 to open up the week as a favorite, and it moved up to 5 at one point. And then the last I saw today, it's down to 3.5, which doesn't surprise me. That kind of made more sense. I thought they even might go to 3. You just give 3 to the home team usually. Right. So I thought it might go to that. But I like Oklahoma State to still win this game. I think that I understand why the favorite is on Boise State right now. I can get that. You look at OSU, and they're not very good against the spread. If I'm betting on college football, I would really have a hard time betting on Oklahoma State because they don't cover the spread very often. And so this is a case where I think it won't matter because I think they'll win outright. I'm going to give final score Oklahoma State 31, Boise State 27. And that might be even high. I'm not sure. I really am not sure, Levi. Boise State could put 27 on Oklahoma State's defense. But the thing I'm factoring in here is that they're going to be out there on the field a little bit longer than they would like probably. So there's going to be some times where they'll give up points. But overall, it's a close game, I think, for me. But I like the Oklahoma State defense to be able to make enough stops once again. And I'm also relying and hoping that this run game, this is the week they turn it on. I'm not saying you got to explode and go for 300, 250 on the ground, but I would like to see more yards per carry. Let's get if someone is playing well, let's keep them out there. If Jaylen Warren gets the majority of the snaps, which I think he will, production will continue from him. So there's a lot of things that need to go right. Like you mentioned, Tay Martin, hopefully he's back, and with that being the case, you give Spencer Sanders a safety valve to throw to, which is another plus. So I think things all point in the direction for Oklahoma State to get a victory. There's a bunch of things they got to do that are somewhat little in terms of mechanics to make sure they get right. But I liked him going undefeated in the non-conference slate, even on the road here. Give me a 4-point win.
I wish I could be that same way, man. Because I even said on Monday, it's like this Oklahoma State team is not going to be the same team when it gets later down the line halfway through the Big 12 season. But with what we see right now, I just don't know if going on the road all the way up to Boise, if we're going to see that switch right now. I mean, I would hope we do. And that's the main thing is, like, it's hope. We're hoping that the offensive line holds up. We are hoping that the running backs finally break through. With the defense, you know that they're going to stay in sturdy, but you're hoping that they can keep the energy up the whole game while the offense goes through its woes like it usually does. I just don't know if when you go up to Boise, if Boise's going to allow you that opportunity to eventually work your way back into the game, especially with the arm of Bachmeier. I'm going to go Boise State. And I believe the score I gave last night was 35. It was either 35-14 or 35-21. I'm going to tone it down a little bit. I'm going to go 31-24 Boise.
31-24. Look at you. Yeah, Vegas says to do it.
Yeah.
So, it's not always wise, as you know, Levi, to go against Vegas. So I can understand it.
It's just hard for me to root for Oklahoma State and pull for them at this moment when they just haven't shown that they've got that X factor on the offense like they usually do every year. And until go ahead.
Well, nothing is said, from the first couple of weeks that they're going to come in here and just put up an offensive performance, like you said. So I understand a productive one. I understand people's doubts in this game. I totally get it. I just feel like this is one of those where Boise State, we saw they couldn't even handle UCF, and I know people look back and say, Oklahoma State could barely handle Tulsa, Missouri State. Yeah, but they still did. So I think that they have that edge here just a little bit. But I can understand, and I'll say this, Levi, I will not be just if they lose this game. If Oklahoma State loses, I will not come and be like, "Oh my gosh, no one saw this coming." This is just a shock, because it wouldn't completely be. But yeah, I can get it.
Yeah, it's just one of those games where I completely understand. Like, should be where Oklahoma State wins and breaks out. But from the backtrack catalog where we've said that for the past 2 games, we're like, oh, this should be where you go out and annihilate Boise State.
It's true.
I mean, we said that for the past 2 weeks. That hasn't happened. I mean, I believe that this would be the place, and if not now, it would be K-State, because K-State's going to be without Skylar Thompson for a good chunk of the year. But nothing has pointed me in the favor of, like, that is actually going to happen. I think the defense is still going to have a good game. I just don't think the production is going to be there on that offensive side. Even though there's a lot of pressure put on Spencer Sanders, you have to look at the offensive line. The offensive line is just not played great. And if they continue to play at this rate, it's going to be a long season and a lot longer than anybody wants it to be.
Oh, I agree. If you're going into conference play and you're coming off a loss to Boise State, you're asking your guys to really rally, because it doesn't get any easier moving forward. That's for sure. There you go. There's our picks for Oklahoma State and Boise State. We'll have more on this game coming up. But up next, last night's Thursday night football game didn't necessarily show a lot of promise with the two teams scheduled, but man, did it deliver with an entertaining back-and-forth battle. We'll take a look at that coming up. College football picks around the country. We'll give you 2 guaranteed wins and an underdog to put some money on this weekend. We've got buy or sell, and then our Week 2 NFL Pick Challenge coming up today. Live from the Coney Island here on this Friday. Back with more on the Afternoon Sports Drive after this.
Oh, screaming out at the top of my lungs, 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 lungs. Tell the world that I found the one. Whoa, my baby's hotter than the golden sun. You make my heart beat like a bass drum. Listen to me now. I've been touched by an angel.
Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Levi Peckinpah with you on this Friday afternoon, live today from Coney Island on the Strip at 223 South Washington. It's just a couple of blocks from Boone Pickens Stadium. For delivery or carry-out, call 405-743-1262 anytime from 11:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. If you don't have anywhere to watch the Oklahoma State Cowboys on Saturday or other big college games, or the NFL on Sundays, Mondays, or Thursdays, the Coney Bar has 14 TVs. Perfect for watching the Cowboys on Saturdays or the pros on Sundays. Football and party destination is Coney Island, so make sure you come check them out. We'll be here tomorrow. I will be back at 5 o'clock if you want to come on in and enjoy the festivities, and the watch party will begin shortly after when OSU kicks off at 8 p.m. Okay, last night, Thursday night football, Giants-Washington football team. First of all, Levi, I have decided that I will tolerate no Thursday Night Football game shaming any longer. There will be nobody who looks at these Thursday night games and says, who would watch that? That's going to be a bad game, because plenty of that was said yesterday, and it was a wildly entertaining game. So game shaming is out the window. I will not tolerate it. When I say entertaining, I said this earlier today. Was it great football overall? Like when it comes to clean play and stuff like that? No, but the entertainment factor was always there because you had one team eventually was going to find a way to win this game. So, plain and simple, though, you look at it right now and you say, look, that's a game the Giants should have won. They had every opportunity to win that football game, and they ran into themselves over and over and over and over. It was a game where penalties, they couldn't stop committing on big plays. Daniel Jones goes out there and has a huge touchdown run called back on a holding call, which was maybe a little ticky-tacky, if you're asking me. And then the other one, you have a wide-open Darius Slayton going down the post, and he's wide open. The pass just bounces off his fingertips, which that one, it's real easy to say Darius Slayton should have had that. And yes, he should have, but at the same time, the pass was a bit overthrown. To me, I can kind of see both sides on that one. I have a feeling that you're on the Darius Slayton should have caught that train.
Yeah, because it's literally, I would put like a millimeter away from Darius Slayton, like fully getting a catch. If I'm having to bring out a ruler and say like, oh, there was this much there. No, he's a wide receiver. He's a professional guy who has the athleticism that's out the gym. He should have got that.
Okay, it's fair. I can understand it.
Also, on those Thursday night games, you're going to want to take that back next week. Next week's Panthers versus Texans. You're taking that back next week.
No, I'm not. I saw who it was, and I don't care, because I think that there's wild potential. You know why? It's a Thursday night game, and everyone's coming off a short week. You just never know, even when it's the Texans.
And then the week after, it's Jaguars versus Bengals. Like, no, we just got lucky, bro. We got lucky.
The Texans are going to come off a beating by the Browns. They're going to want some revenge. Although the only thing is, by that time, the ownership might have gotten word down and said, "Hey guys, quit winning. Do not win. Do not win again. You won that one game, but we can't tank if you keep winning. So stop." So maybe that'll go into play. But here's the thing, Levi, for the Giants. Okay, Daniel Jones played pretty well. Yeah. He ran the football, right, 95 yards. Could have had a lot more than that, as we said. Threw the football okay. There were still some times where he was making mistakes here and there on throws he shouldn't be at this time. But you know what you're kind of going to get from him. And I agree, he played with a ton of effort. He played his tail off when he went out there. The thing that bothered me last night is, and I've got a lot of respect for Joe Judge. I think he's a good young coach. I think he's got a lot of potential, and I see what he's trying to do with this team. But he coached terribly last night, especially down the stretch. He mismanaged the clock over and over in dire situations. When you get the interception, okay, Taylor Heineke throws that pick, and you're sitting there, and you've got a 29-27 lead. So what do you do on first down? You hand it to Saquon. He runs for a yard. Washington calls their first timeout. Second down and 9. Saquon runs it for 2 more yards. Washington calls it second timeout. Then on 3rd and 7, you call a passing play for Daniel Jones on 3rd and 7. It goes incomplete, and you stop the clock. You have to go for a field goal, and you give too much time to even Taylor Heineke. Anybody can score in the National Football League, Levi. Anybody with 1:45 left on the clock. Okay, that's just it. Like, offenses move so quickly and easily in this game anymore. That's too much time. So I don't understand. You take the ball out of his hands, out of Daniel Jones' hands, and then you wait till 3rd down. If you're going to pass, why not do that initially? You've got a couple of timeouts. It doesn't make sense to throw on 3rd down and then stop the clock and literally at that time give Washington an extra timeout and plenty of time. I thought that was a terrible call, and what it showed me is that they still do not fully trust Daniel Jones, because in that spot they would have let him manage the game better himself. They took it out of his hands. They wanted Saquon, who was running in mud most of the night again, to be able to make plays for him, and he couldn't. So I thought that was terrible play calling, coaching, time management, and then as well at the end, you got your guy lined up offsides on the field goal that allows Washington to kick the next field goal and win. So bottom line, no matter what the Giants do right, and this has been this way for quite a while, as you know, Levi, since the Eli Manning days, even sometimes during that time, they continue to get in their own way. They just cannot stop doing it. No matter who's out there, no matter who's the coach, they always find a way to screw it up internally, and that's the biggest problem.
I think I'm starting to get closer into the camp. I'm not fully there. I've got a foot over there now. The problems with the Giants aren't Daniel Jones. It's kind of everybody else. It's Joe Judge. It's the offensive line. With when you're getting closer and closer towards the end of the game and you're needing some more space, you had the one flag by Nate Solder, then immediately after by Andrew Thomas. Both of your tackles false starts. Like, you can't have that. And then on the defensive side, I'll give it to James Bradbury. James Bradbury played excellent. That interception on Taylor Heineke, mwah. But then Dexter Lawrence right at the end, that definitely didn't help. But also, if you're in the situation where you have to rely on a kicker missing it, like, you winning at that point kind of is lucky. So I really think that with the combination of a lot of players not performing up to what they needed to be, offensive line definitely with the penalties, and also just Daniel Jones getting sacked 4 times, that does not help. And also Saquon still, you can tell the injury. He's not quite there yet. No. You can definitely tell, especially when Daniel Jones has more rushing yards and more touchdowns than you. Like, Daniel Jones is the only thing keeping that team running right now. You got a couple players on the defensive side, but offensively, if Daniel Jones goes down, like, that Giants team will be picking number 1 overall in the NFL draft. And honestly, like, I can give you 100% confidence. The best player on the Giants last night was Daniel Jones. He played his heart out. Probably one of the better games, if not the best game I've seen from him. Like, that was an incredible game out of him. And I'm going to need to watch the Giants over the next couple weeks. But you might be comfortable with Daniel Jones as your starting QB, but you're going to have to get an offensive line around him. It's the same thing with Joe Burrow, the same thing with Kyler Murray, the same thing that I still say about Russell Wilson, and the thing we're all saying about Aaron Rodgers right now. You need an offensive line. If not, things are going to continue to go spiral downhill.
No, I agree. You're going to need an offensive line. He was dealing, in the first half, there was a lot of rush getting on him, and he knew that was going to end up happening. But in the second half, and this is another thing, like, I think Daniel Jones, he can be decent. He came out, I remember when they drafted him and everyone was like, get him in there, replace Eli, and he finally did, and then Eli had to come back. So it wasn't, he's had his ups and downs. What he does give you is that ability to run the football effectively. But last night, another thing that I saw out of him that made me think this is why, again, he's not quite there. You bring Kenny Golladay over, and Kenny Golladay and him cannot hook up. And if you look at the passes, he was targeted 8 times. He caught 3 catches for 38 yards. Would have had a touchdown. There were 2 different plays. One of them, he was completely overthrown, just like really bad, wide open, really bad overthrow by Daniel Jones. Those are easy passes that he has to complete. He can run the football well. I agree he played his tail off, but he's still missing on some of these mechanics.
Well,
and but I'm with you as well. I think Joe Judge at this point, what do you have to lose?
Yeah.
If Daniel Jones is your quarterback, you got to give him a chance. You can't take it out of his hands and just think, wow, we can get a field goal and we're sure our defense can stop him. It'll be fine. Come on.
Yeah.
That's just terrible coaching. It's one thing to not believe in your guy, but if he's the only one you have out there, it does give you a better chance than doing what he did. So I thought that he blew it. I never would have done, if I was the head coach for the Giants, I never would have thought, even with Daniel Jones, you know what, we're probably going to have a better chance if we don't let him do this. No, in that situation, you had to do the opposite. So that was a bad decision by Joe Judge, and I'm with you. I think Daniel Jones is growing. It's good to see. He's fighting for his job this year, plain and simple. But there's still some things that he should be doing right that he's not doing right.
Well, I mean, everybody's going to have those problems. I mean, no one's going to say it, but Dak Prescott against Tampa Bay, man threw like 3 or 4 passes into triple coverage. Like, bro, I don't know where he was looking. Definitely had some Tampa Bay colors, but not at his wide receivers. I mean, people will always make mistakes, and because we also still know the talent level of Daniel Jones, you got to say, yeah, those are still bound to happen. But there's still, at least you see the progression. Now, it's can you properly add on? Because this isn't one of those things where it's like with the Jets of like you didn't see any real progression from Sam Darnold or from some of the other teams where it's just like the QB's doing nothing. Like, this is actual progression from Daniel Jones. Like, he's actually going in the right direction, which is weird because even though we said like these wide receivers and whatever, I just did not have faith in Daniel Jones. But he's shown that he's been able to take these steps forward as a QB, and I'm proud of him for that. Now, with Kenny Golladay, I think it's because this is what his true first proper game starting with Daniel Jones. There's definitely going to be some connection issues there. Plus, I'm still like wondering about him health-wise, if everything's still good there. But
you saw Golladay ripping him on the sideline too, right?
Which from what everybody's saying, like, no, that was actually it was either A, Jason Garrett, or B, it was to one of the equipment managers. Like, no one's saying like that was actually to Daniel Jones, but the angle makes it look it's obvious to Daniel Jones. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say, of course they'll say that.
But then again, I wouldn't surprise me if it was to hand clapping Jason Garrett. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
True. And Jason Garrett he lacks creativity, as you well know. And there's weapons on this team that he could get a little bit more creative with, but he doesn't. And it still hurts. We talked about this yesterday. If Saquon's not back, again, it's kind of like the Oklahoma State thing. Mm-hmm. You're asking your QB to do a lot of extra stuff here. And Saquon looked like he was running in mud. I think he was a little bit bouncier at times, and he had that 40-yard run, which was good, and he played almost 85% of the snaps. But other than that, he's not catching passes. He's not breaking through guys on tackles very often. He's got a long way to go, I feel like. And he's got 10 days to rest up here, Levi. And I'm thinking if he comes back in 10 days and still looks like that, we got a serious problem.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of those things where you got to look back out on the market. I mean, Baltimore literally snapped up 3 or 4 running backs that could have easily fit in this situation. Like, I think like Latavius Murray sounds like a perfect running back to be in here, but of course he's now on the Ravens. So I would go to the market and see what you can find. And for Saquon, he's got to figure it out. I don't know how he's going to. If maybe that requires maybe he deactivates for part of the season, get some more healing in, get some more exercising in, or maybe it's just one of those things where the only way he can figure it out is he just got to take a pounding and he's got to just take a lot of hits. Maybe. I don't really know. But I want to move real quick from New York to Washington. Mm-hmm. Taylor Heineke. Like, even though people are saying, like, oh, the Tampa Bay game was the best game of his career, like, some of the throws that Taylor Heineke threw, man, like, there was some pretty spectacular stuff, especially that pass to Ricky Seals-Jones at the back of the end zone where Ricky Seals just toe-tapped in. Like, that was smooth.
That was a beautiful pass. It really, really was. One of the best ones I've seen in a while. 34 of 46. Which clearly shows that Washington is good with him throwing the ball a ton of times too. 336 yards, a couple touchdowns, and that interception was the bad part, right? I mean, it nearly cost him the game,
right.
And it was a bad throw. It never should have left his hand. That was a bad read. So those things need to get fixed for sure.
I think that one was more on the defense of the New York Giants because what had happened there was I believe it was a safety. A safety actually bumped Terry McLaurin. And
you're right. And I saw that on the replay, but I thought to myself, still, you could see him lurking. And I don't think
that's true.
I'm not sure that Heineke even saw him behind him, or at least if he did, he didn't expect him to jump it real quick. He thought that ball would get there quicker. It was bang bang. It was bang bang. But those are the things when he matures at more of the quarterback position, it reads like that. He'll understand. No, I can't throw it there.
Oh yeah, that's very true. This is the first time he's really been, at least I've known for him to be truly thrown into the starter QB spot. He's always been a backup everywhere else. So for his first attempt as a starting QB to go for 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, like I think that's not that bad. I think that's pretty good. And also getting it to my boy Terry McLaurin. Finally had the breakout game. Finally had the big game we won this season.
Did I tell you or did I tell you?
Perfect. 11 receptions, 107 yards, 1 touchdown, and I needed it because I have him against your father. Like, that's perfect.
I bet he loved seeing that explosion. That's the thing, okay? Washington knows, and if Taylor Heineke's going to be successful, he knows it's this simple. Get the ball to Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
Make him number one because Terry, all he does is get open on everything.
He's scary with it.
It's true. You could throw it to Scary Terry every time. He'd probably be open. That's how crazy and good he is at route running and releases and things like that. So I expect he's going to be huge the rest of the way. Like you said, 11 catches last night. They used J.D. McKissick out of the backfield. You got Antonio Gibson, but McKissick had a huge play at the end on that 56-yard catch. And the thing with Heineke is his ball placement isn't great all the time. But last night what he did I think was big because he showed Washington, hey, Ryan Fitzpatrick is probably going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. So don't go looking anywhere. Don't be calling Cam up. I'm going to be the guy. And I think his story is incredible. Like you said, a backup everywhere. That includes the XFL.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was a backup in the XFL not too long ago. And now he's leading the Washington football team at quarterback, which is just an unbelievable transformation. And, I said it yesterday. I didn't think that, I don't really believe in him all season long. And I'm not quite there. One game isn't going to make me go, he's going to be the guy. Because it was the Giants' defense, and their secondary is not great by any means. So we'll see against tougher opponents. But that was big for him. If he went out there and didn't play well and couldn't score against the Giants, then the Washington football team all of a sudden would be in a huge rut, and they'd have to figure out what's going to go on at QB. So I think that he's fluid with this team. He understands it, and this is maybe the biggest thing to take away, too, Levi, from this game. The Washington defense, not as advertised yet this season. They had some plays yesterday, and they made some plays on Daniel Jones more so than they did in Week 1. But they've got to get even better when it comes to who they have on that defensive line, because quarterbacks are going to continue to get better as the season moves along. That includes in division. When you get in there and you play a slippery Jalen Hurts, you better get after him. When you play Dak Prescott, you better force him to make some bad throws. So they got to get on their horse a little bit. At least I think so.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. They need to be able to push it up a little bit. Not only does Washington, but also does the New York Giants. I saw a lot of people earlier today, everybody's still fine with the Washington football team, but a lot of people are putting the Giants as DOA, they're done. 2 games into the season, put a fork in them, done. If they can figure out something with that offensive line, I think the Giants, they're still going to be the worst in the NFC East, but I think they can win 6 games. Washington, they still need to get some stuff connected. I think Heineke's going to work out for this 6 to 8 week period. The defense, something feels like it's missing. I just can't pinpoint it, though. So I think it's just one of those things where for the defense, it's just kind of working it out, getting your reps in. Whatever little chink in the armor, I think they'll eventually self-fix it. The offensive side, I think it's just getting Taylor Heineke even more reps. Just keep him at that starting QB spot. Let him work things out, and they'll be okay. Offensively, I don't think you're running into a problem. I like the 2 running back combo of Gibson and McKissick. It works perfect. It's a perfect dynamic duo. Everything else to me just seems fine. It's just one of those things where they need time together, and then I think that's one of those things where it'll fix all their problems.
Yeah, QB was the question. Going in this season, they had everything else. It seems like Curtis Samuel will be back in a couple of weeks, so you'll add that to your receivers list. He's on short-term IR right now, but he'll be back. So it gets better at that position for them. I think they can be scary again, and it's all going to depend on if Taylor Heineke is consistent. Because if he is, and he plays like that for the most part the rest of the way, then watch out. They end up being somewhat of the team to beat. So I thought it was a wildly fantastic and entertaining game last night for Thursday Night Football. A lot of back and forth. It ends on a walk-off field goal on a second chance attempt for Washington after you had old boy lining up off sides with the Giants there. It's just a big time no-no, but it happened. So Giants fall to 0-2. Washington is 1-1 on the season. When we come back on the afternoon sports drive, we'll continue our college football picks. We'll take a look at where we stand. Zach not with us today, but he sent me his picks, and we'll see where we stand on our 3-man leaderboard as well, and give you our 2 guaranteed wins and an upset for your gambling pleasures this weekend. Coming up next on the afternoon sports drive.
Showed you true colors, I don't like what I see. Story keeps changing, I know what that means. Know what that means, I know what that means. How'd you go from being that somebody I believed into being someone doubting me behind the scenes? Can't forgive it, sorry that I ain't never
Sports Radio
received.
Network, Patrick Wheeler and Levi Peckinpah rocking with you on this Friday as we get you into the weekend here at Coney Island, Party Central for Oklahoma State football. Watch party tomorrow, kickoff at 8 p.m. against Boise State. All right, so let's take a look at our college football picks scoreboard here. After tallying up the first 2 weeks of our picks, Levi, again, these are against the spread, and then we have one underdog. Zach comes in at 5-1. He finally got a loss last week.
Yeah.
You come in at 3-3, and I also come in at 3-3 on the season. We had a couple of them where we had the winner right, but we did not get the spread against the spread correct. So that's kind of where we're where we're at right now. But it's okay. Winners take chances. That's for sure. Last week, I actually went 0 for 3 on my winners.
Ooh.
It was brutal. I had Texas again, which, as we know, screwed everybody. I had Iowa State upsetting Iowa, which also did not happen, and then I took Mizzou over Kentucky in the SEC. So with winners, I went big-time L's last week, so I'm looking to bounce back in a big way today. So I'm going to hope that ends up being the case. I'll lead in with Zach's. He sent me his. He's got, for his 2 guaranteed wins. First one, Coastal Carolina is a 14-point spread over Buffalo. He likes them to cover that. I don't think that should be too much of an issue for Coastal Carolina. Then he has Penn State to cover a 5-point spread over Auburn, which is sort of an interesting. I feel like because Zach is doing some classes at Penn State, he loves to pick the Nittany Lions. Now, it is going to be the whiteout game, which I don't know about you, but I'm pumped to see that.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be really excellent. But I'm always one of those teams that once Auburn pops up in the top 25, I stay clear, because Auburn is one of those teams that usually when they have a good team going, they can steamroll a lot of people. So I'm not really so sure about that pick.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. And then he's got BYU as his upset over Arizona State.
Okay.
The 23-19, Arizona State comes in as a 3.5-point favorite on the road. BYU just beat Utah in a huge game last week, so they got into the top 25 because of that, and they're certainly capable of beating Arizona State 2-0. So those are his 2 guaranteed wins and an upset. What do you got for us today, Levi?
Okay, I'll start off with my first one. I've been trying to search. I'm not going to go into a top 25 game. I'm actually going to stick into Big 12, though. Nevada taking on K-State. I think that injury to Skylar Thompson is going to be pretty effective. That Nevada at 1.5, I'm going to take that.
Yeah, I looked at that earlier today, too, and I thought, man, if the Skylar Thompson's in there, that line is much more than that. But you've got Nevada coming in, like you said, on the road as a 1.5-point favorite. Yeah, that was somewhere I was leaning, too. I think I like that. There's probably a lot of people that are going to hop on that train, even though they're on the road. I'll go with my first one, my guaranteed win. Against the spread here, Virginia Tech comes in this week, and they are 2.5-point underdogs at West Virginia. And they're ranked number 15 in the country. West Virginia, as we know, is unranked, but still getting that favor at home. I saw what Virginia Tech did to North Carolina. Their defense is the real deal. I think they come in here on the road and win this game and cover that as well, even if they didn't at 2.5. So that's where I like Virginia Tech coming in this week. ACC versus Big 12 and on the road even. I'll take Vautech.
I like that. I think I'm going to go with the big primetime matchup. I'm going to go number 1, Alabama taking on number 11, Florida. Give me Alabama at that 14.5. I think it's going to be even more than that 14.5. I think you're going to see Alabama just put it on the Gators.
I was thinking the same thing. I actually have that down as my second pick because I've seen what they've done to everybody that they faced so far this season. And when it comes to talent, it doesn't matter if you're a good team. It doesn't matter if you're a ranked team. That's 1 versus 11, and you're on the road when they're a 14.5-point favorite. And they're absolutely going to be able to cover that. So it is going to be something I think Alabama takes care of here, and it's going to be one of those things that Alabama and the Crimson Tide, with the way that they play defensively, offensively, and every single week, no matter what they do, Nick Saban always has something to say, like, we didn't do this right. We didn't do this enough. Like, and they'll win by 40 points. Like, they beat Mercer last week, right? And he was completely unhappy with the entire game plan. And I'm like, man, that's Nick Saban for you right there. So I think they come in and they just hand it to Florida. It's going to be one of those marquee, like you said, SEC matchups. But I don't think it's going to be close. I've also got them covering 14.5. I'm like you. I think they could win by 3 touchdowns or more.
Yeah. For my upset, I've got like a couple in mind because part of me kind of wants to go in the camp of what Zach's going with BYU over Arizona State, but I'm going to go with my faith in Michigan State because I know every couple of years what usually happens, not even every couple of years, almost every year, Michigan State always bumps up and down out of the top 25. Right now, they're going to be taking on number 24, the University of Miami, Florida. Give me Michigan State on the upset. That's the way I'm going to go because just with the way Michigan usually recruits and usually brings in some tough talent and they are able to develop them, I'm going to go Michigan State on an upset.
Okay, yeah, I looked at that one too, and I thought there was some value there as well. in that game. And certainly, like you said, Michigan State, you kind of never know what you're going to get from them in football. They could come out and perform really well, or they could fall flat, that's for sure.
But, I mean, they're gonna be led by Kenneth Walker the third, and he's been a running machine so far. So it wouldn't surprise me if you just see him strutting all over the U.
Coincidentally enough, with Zach, I actually also had my upset at BYU and Arizona State. BYU's back home. Arizona State right now, number 19 in the country. But I think the Cougars are riding really high off of what they did at Utah. That was a huge win. And Arizona State comes in as a 3.5-point favorite. I don't think so. I think BYU is going to end up winning outright at home, and I like them to go to 3-0. A pretty good team overall, and something just tells me, Levi, that Arizona State might be a little overrated.
Yeah.
So I think they're about to run into their first loss, and that's the upset I'm going with.
I'm not going to lie. Part of my brain wants to go can I change? But I think I'm going to stick with it because this is what happens with Michigan State almost constantly. It's where they are sitting at the bottom of the top 25. They can never usually make it out. They just can never get over the games that they need to get over, and they usually just stick at the bottom. So I'm gonna hold with my Michigan State win. It's probably gonna be an L, but I think that there's a lot of potential here with these Spartans.
As we say in gambling, you got to spend money to make money, right?
Exactly,
so
Mundo.
We're going to go after. Those are the games that we're chasing this weekend. Good stuff there. We'll take a look next week and see how we did when the weekend comes to a close in college football. A lot of good games this week. All right, when we come back on the afternoon sports drive, hour number 2, we'll get into some buy or sell, and then later on, to round out the show, we'll give you our Week 2 NFL picks and see where Levi and I stand against each other after 1 week officially in the books, and the start of the second is here. Coming up next on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
And I don't know how we make it out when we make that on the low. Even if it rains, you'd rather make it snow. Both you and me know we gotta let it go. Laying on the ground, wondering why it's so cold. How we make it out when we make out on the low.
Welcome back. It's hour number 2 of the afternoon sports drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Levi Peckinpah with you today, live from Coney Island, 223 South Washington on the Strip. You can call them at 405-743-1262 for delivery or carry out anytime from 11:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. Don't forget to check out Coney Island's TWO concession stands at Boone Pickens Stadium. 2 stands in BPS while you are there cheering on the Cowboys as well, so you can make sure to enjoy that while you're at the game. And if you haven't been to the new and improved Coney Island, you got to check it out. There's new drinks, new food items right now, new areas to hang out, like the Coney Backyard, the Coney Garden, or the Coney Rooftop, with a bunch of big games out there too, like Giant Jenga, Cornhole, Foursquare, and Giant Cup Pong, as well as board games. So it is Party Central, and the watch party kicks off tomorrow night with Oklahoma State kicking off at 8 p.m. against Boise State. To get into this second hour, Levi and I will dive into some buy or sell.
Are you buying?
I'd buy that for $1.
Or are you selling?
You'll pick up the phone and you'll sell, sell, sell.
This is Buy or Sell on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Make money, money, make money.
Buy or sell here on the afternoon sports drive. All right, Levi, if you look at the total offense for Oklahoma State through 2 games so far this season, they're averaging 341 yards per game. So buy or sell here in Game 3 on Saturday against Boise State, they get over that 400 total yard mark.
Ooh. Again, that's playing into the is Oklahoma State's offense going to get back on track type of thing. I'm going to sell. I just don't think with the way things are going, I think you can get upwards 350-ish. That's where I think, if everything's going right, that's the landing mark. I just don't think 400 against Boise State is going to happen. I really think that Boise State's going to try to show up and show out against Oklahoma State, and I don't think the offense is going to be able to respond. So I'm going to sell.
I'm with you as well. I think that if they have 400-plus yards of offense, they won this game, for sure. The thing for me is that when you're not running the ball effectively, you're asking, once again, your offense to really, your passing game to really step it up and bail you out. So, and nothing yet has told me that that's for sure going to be the case. I'm like you. I like the idea of 350 somewhere in there. But the way it can go up, too, is, Spencer, he didn't have a lot of yards last week throwing football. So if he wants to, hit that 400 mark, he'll have to bump that up a little bit. And now you'll take a victory. Even it's kind of like the Jameis Winston thing, right? He had under 200 yards and 5 touchdowns, and so he won the game. So sometimes it doesn't matter, but something tells me in this one you're going to need to consistently move the football down the field with the arm as well. As much as I have faith in this run game to turn it around, I don't think it's going to be like exponentially better.
Yeah.
But it will improve in some fashion, I believe. But not enough to really get to 400 quite yet. That will happen at some point this season. Again, these receivers are kind of learning on the fly, right? You've got some younger guys that are kind of getting into it. If you get Tay Martin back, you bring that experience. I said yesterday, I think Brennan Presley's in for a little bit of a bigger workload. He's had 4 catches exactly through the first 2 games. I think that's finally going to go up here in this one, and we could see 5 or more. So there's different areas where I think you could improve and obviously build up some of those yards, but not quite for me. Am I ready to go 400-plus with this offense based off what they've shown me so far?
Yeah, I'm going to need first the running backs to crack 100-plus yards by themselves. That's when I can start moving the needle, because the only reason they hit over 100 last game was because of Spencer Sanders. Besides that, the running backs, we could have said they just had about as bad of a game as they did against Missouri State. So unless they can crank it up a little bit more, I'm not going to put it in good faith over that 400 threshold. But with my buy or sell for the day, we'll move to the NFL, because the game I'm going to be looking at. It's going to be the Dallas Cowboys versus the Los Angeles Chargers. And I'm also looking at total yardage for the 2 teams. Now, originally, I sent you 800-plus, but I'm trying to think about both these teams. You had Dak throwing for 400. You had Jay Herbo throwing for over 300. So I'm going to bump it up even more. Buy or sell that out of the Dallas Cowboys versus Los Angeles Chargers game, you get 900-plus total yards from both teams. All combined together, that's what you get.
Bumping it up on it. I think if you like offense, this is the game to tune into.
There's no defense.
There's not going to be very much defense at all being played in this game. Dak came out and just slung it all over the place on Thursday, right? And he's had a long break here to get even better, to get even more healed up on that arm a little bit. I thought there were a few times we could tell he still wasn't 100% with the arm, but he should get there very soon. There's just a few mechanical things, and I think with this amount of time that he's had off, we're probably going to see him coming out in full force, ready to go. You don't have Michael Gallup, but you do have Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, and that's probably good enough. Because if you look at the Chargers, they've really only got a couple of guys that they're going to go to most of the time with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. But I will give Jay Herbo credit, because last week, and I forgot, Levi, that Jared Cook was on this team. He's bounced around so many times, and he's on the Chargers, and he had a pretty decent game. And Justin Herbert likes to find the tight end, so he was able to do that. Hunter Henry's gone, so somebody had to fill it in, and I think he did a nice job. What was surprising, the most surprising thing to me out of the Chargers win last week, is not only did Austin Eckler not catch a pass in the game, he wasn't even targeted in the game at running back, which he is like your ideal. He's made a living on catching passes out of the backfield. So that was pretty surprising. Maybe that improves a little bit this week. Who knows? But I think that the offense as a whole for both teams is, this is the game you want fantasy players in. Because I think, and we kind of said that about Thursday night when they opened the season. It was true. You had guys everywhere with a ton of yards. But it's kind of the same thing as last season for the Cowboys, the way they started. They're going to have a ton of passing yards, a ton of offense to make up for what the defense lacks. We talked about yesterday DeMarcus Lawrence not out there either. So we'll see how much of an effect that has. I think it's the Chargers have Joey Bosa, so maybe he's able to get after Dak a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be a huge difference maker. I expect a back and forth battle. I expect a ton of yards. I would buy 800. 900. I don't think there's going to be a ton of rushing in this game. Zeke should have some better chances. Austin Eckler's probably going to do his thing in a way, but I don't think it's going to be nearly as much as you're going to see these two QBs pile up. So give me the sell on 900, but I'll buy 800 all day.
Yeah, I'm kind of around the 800 mark. I was like 900. I'm like, I'm trying to get it to where if it's 900, that means also the running games are probably doing all right.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't believe in Zeke, and I never believed in Austin Eckler. Just never have. And I still love how everybody's like, yes, Austin Eckler can be a running back number 1 when he's never put anywhere like even like running back number 10 numbers half the time.
Well, he's been a pass catcher, right?
Yeah,
I mean, all those years he was sitting behind Melvin Gordon. That's all he did was catch passes.
Exactly. I mean, he's not a running back number 1. He's a pass catch back that got lucky that Melvin Gordon went somewhere else. That's how it is. But part of me is like, if it turns into like full gunslinger and it's a shootout, like I can expect 900, but I don't think we're going to get anywhere near a shootout until we like get to the back half of the fourth quarter. I think that's when you're going to see both Dak and Jay Harbaugh sling it. So I think probably around like the 800-yard mark is probably perfect. So I'm going to sell 900, but if it was 800, I think that is on the money.
I think it's going to be a really, really fun game. Definitely one of those. The Cowboys are going to find themselves in back-to-back offensive showdowns. You know, the Chargers coming off a victory, hard fought against Washington. They're feeling good. You know, I'm completely bought in on Justin Herbert. And I think he has a big chance for big numbers against this Dallas defense on Sunday. So it's going to be fun, man. I think back and forth. And like I said, if you're a fan of offense, which most people who exist that are football fans are,
yes, sir.
This is definitely one to tune into. So it'll be a lot of fun. That'll be one of the mini games we'll get to dive into this weekend. And we'll do that when we come back here on the Afternoon Sports Drive. We'll give you our Week 2 picks and see where we land right now, going head-to-head against each other on the picks scoreboard in the NFL. Coming up next on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Whoa.
Staring as I go, I gave until my soul hurt, never told them so. They're watching as I fall, somewhere down below.
Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Levi Peckinpah with you on this Friday afternoon, getting you into the weekend live today from Coney Island, 223 South Washington. 405-743-1262 is the number to call for delivery or carryout. Don't forget that Coney Island has the watch party going on tomorrow night. Oklahoma State and Boise State will get it going at 8 o'clock. There's TVs in the Coney Bar, the Coney Garden, and the Coney Restaurant area. Pretty much every corner you look, you'll be able to find the game and all the college football games going on. So this is going to be where you want to be for Party Central for Cowboys football tomorrow evening. 8 p.m. kickoff. Come enjoy some great food, great drinks, great atmosphere, and watch the game here at Coney Island. Okay, Levi, it's a tie one after week 1. And, I like to compare myself to one of my all-time favorite receivers, if you will. I really, really enjoy Marquise Brown on the Baltimore Ravens. And one thing that he does pretty well is he'll start his season off really well. He'll start it off on a high note. Maybe even 1, 2, 3 weeks, he'll look like one of the better receivers in the league. And that's kind of where I am with my picks when we go to games. For 1, 2, and 3 or so, I'll be rocking and rolling. Then about week 4 comes in, and I take a couple of risks on some iffy games, and it just doesn't pan out. So I don't know if you like my comparison to Hollywood Brown there, but he's kind of where I'm going with right now.
Okay, I'm trying to think and imagine like what my comparison would be, because my brain's like, I don't really know, because like mine is like I have a solid start, and then once the season goes on, I just ramp it up, and it just ramps up, and then I guess I might be like I don't know, because I don't want to make one that like sounds extremely cocky.
Well, what we can do is we'll compare you to the entire Chiefs offense, and here's why: because they start off slow at times. More often than not, right? They'll have some slow starts, and then they'll, as we know, ramp it up and find themselves in the Super Bowl. So that's that. There you go.
Yeah. Plus, I'm actually the one favored for a Super Bowl championship.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Whatever you need to do.
You set it up, man. You set it up.
I did. That was my fault. And like I said, I'm just barely leading after 1 week. I was 8 out of 15 correct. You were 7 out of 15 correct. The differences we had, which ended up paying off for me. If I would have went with the Seahawks, I would have had an even bigger lead, but I chose the Colts on that one. Didn't work out. I had the Chargers beating Washington. I tried to tell you. You wouldn't listen. I tried to tell you. The Chargers got that one done. And then I had the Cardinals beating the Titans, and man, did they ever. So those two kind of saved me on that. But I can give you the Chargers-Titan or the Cardinals-Titans one. That one just – I mean, I don't know what the heck was going on there.
Yeah, that's one of those where you just kind of throw it up like, I don't even know. That's just Chandler Jones saying, I'm back, and in just wrecking the whole shop.
Yeah, just let me get 5 sacks. It's no big deal.
Real quick.
It's completely fine. We started off each 1-0. Last night we had Washington. I will admit I was skeptical. I wanted to go New York when I picked it originally, but I was like, nah, it's Thursday night. Too many things working against them. But man, it almost happened. So we both started off 1-0 in that realm. There's a lot of really good games once again this week throughout the entire league. Clearly in week 1 we had a ton of. I mean, the underdog was the way to go, and that was the case pretty much for betting too, all the way across. So let's take a look at some of these games, the ones we've got going on here in week 2. Raiders and Steelers kick things off at the top of the noon games. The Raiders coming off a crazy win over the Ravens on Monday Night Football. The Steelers beat Buffalo, so you know they got to feel pretty good about that, even though Big Ben kind of looked like an old man most of the time. The defense stood tall against Josh Allen. This one, I think it's kind of in a way it could be a toss-up, but I just don't expect the Raiders to be able to do enough against this defense. You know, they could maybe shock everybody 2 weeks in a row. Baltimore's one thing. I think that defensively, though, they're going to have a tough time when it comes to trying to score on the Steelers. So, and Big Ben, like I said, he looked old, but this is maybe the week, Levi, where Najee Harris has a chance to get it going. I think there'll be a little bit more of a hole opened up for him here and there. They should use him more in the passing game. He was out there all week. Last week on pretty much every snap, which was good. He just didn't have anywhere to go against Buffalo. Well, because that offensive line's really terrible. So I think Derek Carr, good way to start the season. Raiders, huge way to start the season as a team. But I just don't think they have enough to beat the Steelers, especially on the road. So I'm going to go Pittsburgh.
I think I'm going to go Pittsburgh as well. I was fighting it but man, the Raiders. I'm a Max Crosby guy. And the way that he bursted out last week, and he's been doing and just improving season by season. This will probably be his breakout year. But also, the Raiders are going to be without Josh Jacobs. Gerald McCoy, I was surprised to hear that he was on the Raiders, but he's out as well. And there's a good shot. I know Marcus Mariota doesn't move the needle, but he's occasionally in on some packages and on some plays. So I think that with the various injuries that are affecting the Raiders, I'm going to go in favor of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are probably going to go on that one run they had last year was oh yeah, we're 10-0, but it's the weakest games possible, and then they hit the downslide on the back end again.
No, they were, as you and I both know, the worst 11-0 team last year that we've ever seen.
Well, they're going to be they're going to be the worst 2-0 team we've ever seen here.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree. It's when these tougher teams come around, it's not going to be pretty because this offensive line ain't going to hold up. But probably just enough to get it done over the Raiders here. So we're both going with the Steelers there. 49ers, Eagles. The 49ers were, last week, really had it under control, no problem against Detroit, as was expected. And then they kind of screwed around and let Detroit come back late. The defense and special teams didn't do them any favors in the second half. I thought for a second, I was like, is Jared Goff really about to do this?
Yeah.
Not quite enough. But he did give it a good effort. However, the 49ers came out on top. They end up winning. It was just good to see, and I know the defense, again, struggled in the second half, but it was good to see that defense back and healthy. Because when they're out there and this team has them rolling, they have the run game going, they're still a really, really dangerous team. And I got to give credit. I thought Jimmy G looked okay. He looked fine. There wasn't really too much complaint. They brought Trey Lance in. Trey Lance scored a touchdown. I still think Trey Lance is probably, who you need to go to sooner rather than later. But let's just say that Jimmy G probably bought himself a few more weeks based off that performance. And then you go into the Eagles, not a daunting challenge when you look at their defense. Jalen Hurts probably surprised some people last week. I know he did me with how well he actually played. It was the Falcons, but I didn't really expect him to play that well. And he looked good really in all aspects of the game. The Eagles projected to be one of the worst teams this season. But, the 49ers sitting here, they draw the Lions and the Eagles in 2 games, and you would think they might be bound to trip up on one here. But I think as much as I like this game and I think it's going to be closer than people think, I'd still have to go 49ers. But it's not going to be one of those games that's like a big-time blowout if the Eagles play like they did last week. Raheem Mostert also out, which you hate to see. But I think they have enough weapons. And Deebo Samuel went off last week. They got to get Brandon Ayuk more involved. George Kittle did his thing. Like, it was like 70-something yards, no touchdown. I think he has a touchdown this week. So give me the 49ers, but I think it's close.
I'm going to switch up and go Philly. I think that there's a lot of injuries on the defense right now. Jason Verrett out for the season. Drake Greenlaw out for half the season. From what it looks like, I believe it's Emmanuel Mosley potentially out for this game as well. So your cornerback group is already all decimated. Yes, there are your other big guys are also still there, but I mean, there's already the holes over there in that San Francisco defense. And I think with Jalen Hurts, I think he's going to, for the first couple weeks, have a couple big performances to kind of act like, yeah, I'm seriously a decent quarterback in the NFL. And I think this week it'll be one of those like surprise me pickups where everybody's be like, wow, Jalen Hurts actually did that. Because he has some good talent, good offensive line. Defense, yeah, they're not like great like we've seen way in the past, but they still have some formidable talent on that defense side of the ball. So I'm going to go with the win. I will go with the upset in Philly.
He'll say, yeah, I'll show you guys to rumor trying to get Deshaun Watson over here. Heck no, this is my team.
Yeah.
I honestly think that he was kind of feeling that, because those rumors came on pretty strong at one point. It was like, yeah, the Eagles are going to really try to go after Deshaun Watson. They don't believe in Jalen Hurts. And something tells me he kind of took that personally. So I like his start. I think he has a good chance to have a couple of decent games here. So that's our first difference of the week. Texans-Browns, the reason, and here's the thing, Tyrod Taylor, good for him. If you look at his journey, I'm not a believer in Tyrod Taylor overall, but good for him to get a win last week where everyone was picking against him. A lot of eyes on what the heck the Texans are going to do now that Deshaun Watson is out. But he got a big win against Jacksonville. The thing with the Browns, though, they played Kansas City very well for the most part last week. They're a better team, as you've said, and I agree they are a lot better this year. Baker Mayfield looks good. No OBJ again. I don't think that's going to be a huge factor in this game. The Browns coming off of what they did, and they said, hey, that should have been a win against Kansas City. And in a way, it probably should have. You were up 22-10 at halftime, right? It should have been a win if you would have held on to it. But should-haves are not, and they're going to come in and destroy the Texans, man. The Texans are not good defensively. The Browns are going to run the football all over them. They're going to line up Baker Mayfield for easy throws. I think everybody on the Browns has a huge day, and the Browns defense is going to get after Tyrod Taylor. I don't see this being close at all, especially with it being home.
R.I.P. the Houston Texans. That's all I got. Go Cleveland Browns all the way. They're going to beat them by like 40.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's probably going to be a blowout. They are a very good team this season for sure. Broncos-Jags. The Broncos got it done. Teddy B magic, baby, on the road now this week against the number one pick, Trevor Lawrence. Urban Meyer, the only talk this week has been is Urban Meyer going to go to USC? Hasn't even been what's he going to do with the Broncos coming in 0-1. He's not going to USC. He's the head coach of the Jaguars. Can Teddy B do it again? After what I saw last week, there were ups and downs, certainly for Trevor Lawrence. 3 interceptions, never going to win you a football game most of the time. But he had some decent throws. Granted, he did have some garbage time as well that kind of helped with that. They went away from the run. They didn't run James Robinson. It didn't make a lot of sense. I think they need to try to do that more in this game. But I got to give credit to Teddy B for doing what he did last week, and I think he does it again here. On the road, he brings in all those weapons at wide receiver that play well for him. He's got Noah Fant as a good tight end. They also have Alberto, who's another good tight end. So I think and then the defense for the Broncos is solid. I like them to go 2-0, which I didn't really expect to have to say coming in this season, Levi, but I'm going with them.
Yeah, you got to go Broncos here because not Denver. Jacksonville looks like they're going to be in the NFL lottery again. They look like they're going to be pick 1 through 5. They're somewhere in there. They're going to be trying to pick Evan Neal out of Alabama to protect Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, I think it's got to go Denver, especially like you're saying there. You're going through all the talent in Denver with Teddy B. I think he's going to connect a lot with Cortland Sutton. I think that should be a breakout game with the injury to Jerry Jeudy. Noah Fant, Albert Okwuegbunam. They have a lot of talent over there. Also Tim Patrick. You forget about him sometimes. Solid offensive line. True. Top 5, top 10 defense over there. Give it to Denver.
I give you credit for saying Albert's last name. I just go with Albert O.
Yeah.
I cannot. Even he played at Mizzou, and I watched him a lot, but I cannot nail that last name. So there you go. I think you were close, right? You might have been spot on.
Yeah, might have been. It's one of those like whenever you watch the NBA enough and you say Antetokounmpo, like that's the thing with
Yeah.
Albert Ogwunibanam. You got to get the whole thing started in because I can't do Ogwunibanam by itself. Okay, apparently I can do it by itself. So
There you go.
But yeah, he's one of those guys where I thought it was going to be him and Drew Lock just connecting together and it was going to soar. Nah, it's him and Teddy B apparently.
It's a heck of a name, man. It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, Saints-Panthers. This is an interesting matchup here. We talked a little bit about Jameis Winston just shocked the world. He went out there 5 touchdowns against the Packers, under 200 yards. The defense is got some weaknesses on it. I don't think that's any surprise for everyone over there in New Orleans territory. Alvin Kamara is going to do his thing. But the reason I gave so much credit to Jameis was his maturity obviously showed. He spent a year under Drew Brees, and that was maybe the most beneficial year of his life because of his development here and what he's taken away in this offense. The only thing, and on top of it, he used weapons that no one really knew who he was going to go to. You had Alvin Kamara, and there was no Michael Thomas. So he made plays with guys that are unconventional wide receivers. So it was good to see that. I was proud of Jameis. He comes into a Panthers team where Sam Darnold goes 1-0, played a serviceable game, wasn't great, but wasn't terrible by any means. And the biggest part is Christian McCaffrey. I think you've got two top 5 running backs in this matchup, Levi, with Kamara and Christian McCaffrey. And CMC, when he came in, he carried the load all day long. I mean, it was just like old times. Like the injury had never happened. He's out there almost every single snap, catching plays, running them into the end zone, or getting closer, I should say, and just piling up yards and touches. Mm-hmm. And Sam Darnold's a guy that's going to dump it off to him a lot. We know that. So he's going to have plenty of volume. This is kind of this is a pick, kind of a pick 'em. In the past, you'd probably always go with the Saints. I've been back and forth on this game multiple times throughout the week. I think I'm going to lean towards Jameis Winston and the Saints on the road, but just barely. I like this to be a shootout. I don't think there's going to be a ton of defense played here, but in Jameis we trust for another week and get Sam Darnold his first loss as a Panther.
Buy me a shootout with a side of crab legs. I'm going Jameis Winston.
There we go. Oh, with a side of crab legs. How about that?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
To eat a W.
Eat the dub. Jameis going to do it again. All right, this is a good matchup right here. Rams and Colts. And last week we saw L.A. just do what they were supposed to do against Chicago on Sunday Night Football. I mean, that was going to happen. I thought Matt Stafford looked extremely comfortable in that offense. The weapons look good. Cooper Kupp is good as ever. Robert Woods always out there. You got Tyler Higbee, who I think is going to end up having the chance to be one of the better tight ends this year because there's no one else around there. Gerald Everett's gone. And they made up for the running back situation. Cam Akers would have been a huge blow, you would have thought, but Darrell Henderson plays well. Sony Michel, maybe he gets more touches. But they do go up against a Colts team who should be a lot more competitive. I will say this. The Colts got moved around by Seattle pretty hard. They really got pushed around and didn't play well at all, mostly in that game. Carson Wentz needs to bounce back here. They need to get Jonathan Taylor some touches. We saw last week David Montgomery really didn't have a terrible time running over this L.A. defense, rush defense by any means. So I think it could be a decent day for Jonathan Taylor. I like the Rams on the road, but I do think this is another one of those that really kind of comes down to the wire for me. Two good teams, and I think 2 playoff teams this year for sure.
I'm going to go Rams. I just, by looking at the injury report, just recently ruled out Xavier Rhodes and Braden Smith, so your top corner, and I believe your big right tackle. So, yeah, Jonathan Taylor can run. How's he going to run with a bad offensive line, though? And also Quentin Nelson is still questionable. Kwity Paye is also questionable. Eric Fisher is also questionable. So there's a whole bunch of question marks over on that offensive line, and that does not bode well for both Carson Wentz and for Jonathan Taylor. So give me the Rams all the way. Matt Stafford 2-0 as an LA Ram.
Aaron Donald might have himself a day. Who knows? He might be able to get after
5 sacks.
5 sacks, yeah. Chandler Jones, let's go. All right, Bills-Dolphins. This is a Bills team that did not expect to be 0-1 to start the season by any means. They were coming into Pittsburgh expecting Josh Allen to do his thing. I'm going to lie, Levi, watching that game, I saw some hints of old Josh Allen. You know, he wasn't as accurate at times. Now, it was a good Steelers defense, but he's a top 5 quarterback to me right now in the league, and he did not play like it on Sunday. So he's going to have to step that up. I still think Stephon Diggs and him, they're going to be able to get it going here quick. This isn't a relief by any means going up against this Dolphins defense. Give credit to Tua. You know, he got it done against the Patriots, but you know I'm still not a full-time believer in Tua, and I think he gets a really good test this week, and we'll see really where he is. But I think that the Bills bounce back. They do lack that rushing attack still, which is, I think, going to hurt them more often than not at times if Josh Allen isn't performing up to par. But give me the Bills on the road. I think they right the ship, and the Dolphins take their first loss.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bills as well. I've been waiting for that bounce back. I've been waiting for this defense to, play up to its potential because it's a built defense, but nobody's been playing up to their true untapped potential because Tremaine Edmonds is a guy that could really do well for himself. Matt Milano coming back from injury. Ed Oliver, Trey White. All these guys are extremely great at their job. Just kind of waiting for them to break out of their shell. I think this will be the game that you'll see a lot of pressure from that defensive side. You'll see Josh Allen go back and have himself a little bit of a better game. But give me the Bills as well to beat down on those Dolphins.
Patriots, Jets, a couple of rookie QBs going at it. Mac Jones, as we just said, didn't quite get it done against the Dolphins. The Jets were never going to do anything probably for what we thought against the Panthers. Didn't happen. The Jets are still really bad. Zach Wilson, when he had time to throw, looked good. When he didn't, looked bad. He's not going to be able to make throws on the run. I think that's pretty clear. He's not all that athletic. But when he's got a clean pocket, which for the Jets isn't very often, he does make good plays. But the thing is, he has no one to throw to. The Jets have no weapons out there for him to get the football to, really. The Patriots, we know they tried. They kind of improved at wide receiver, I guess, off last year. You could say they did, but still not any big-time playmakers out there. I like what I heard, though, and this really didn't surprise me. Mac Jones was said that immediately after the game he was already looking at Jets film. And then people tried to go back and make comparisons. Who does that remind me of? Former Patriot. Oh, yeah, Tom Brady used to do that too. I think the Patriots come in, and they're thrilled to get the Jets here in Week 2 because it should be an easy win, and Mac Jones is going to feel good coming off this.
Yeah, give it to the Patriots. I feel sorry for Zach Wilson a little bit because he's in the exact same situation Sam Darnold was in. Got a good defense, some okay wide receivers. I really like Corey Davis. Offensive line's awful.
But the difference, Levi, too, is he's got a better head coach, luckily.
Yeah, that's true. But he's also a defensive head coach, not an offensive guy.
True.
So that I don't know if that really actually helps at all. So he's in a little bit better situation, but the foundation's close to the same. So I'm going to go with the Patriots. I think it's just going to be Mac Jones getting that first big W on his chest in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. Bengals, Bears, hey, you got to get hats off to Joe Burrow, man. Took him to overtime and got it done eventually against the Vikings in Week 1. I thought Joe Burrow looked the part again. If he stays healthy, he's got a chance to be one of the better QBs because of his poise and his ability to find guys in tight spaces. So I was pretty proud of what he did. I thought it was cool to see Jamar Chase and him hook up again. That should be a fun hookup all season long, just like the old days at LSU. It was a 50-yard dime that he threw to Jamar Chase last week that was an easy touchdown. So it was great to see, I think, for the Bengals as a whole to be able to take Minnesota into overtime and actually get it done. Joe Mixon is an underrated stud at running back.
Yes, sir.
I really do like this Bengals team, man. I think they've got some weapons on a team that a lot of people have at the lower tier of the teams in the entire league. But they're coming into the Bears right now, who so far looks like Andy Dalton again. It really at this point does not make sense to not have Justin Fields out there. The only risk you would be taking if you're Matt Nagy, because you're fighting for your job this year, but at the same time, you think to yourself, okay, if I put him out there too early and we don't win games, then I'm for sure going to lose my job. But you have to also think if I keep putting Andy Dalton out there and we also keep losing, then I'm going to lose my job then. So which one do I take? I think he has to take a risk on Justin Fields. We saw him slightly, which, by the way, against L.A., it didn't make sense for him to just randomly come in and hand it off at times. He did score finally, but the other times it was like, why? Why are you doing that? Don't waste it if you're not going to keep him out there. So I think the Bears, maybe the best player they have right now is, well, certainly Allen Robinson, but David Montgomery looked good again. until they get Justin Fields out there, Levi, I'm going to have a hard time picking them anywhere. And I like the Bengals to go 2-0. I'm going with the Bengals on the road, and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase have a day again.
Dang it! You should have picked the Bears so I could go against you and get the Bengals, because I got to take the Bengals. I love the Bengals. I think they finally improved in a lot of various spots. Of course, they got rid of their vets last year, but now you're finally able to get in a bunch of you getting a better offensive line, which I know that's crazy to say, but yeah, they got in a better offensive line. They went from probably one of the worst to a below average to mid-pack offensive line, which is leaps and bounds better than what the Bengals had last year, and that showed for Joe Mixon in his last game. Joe Mixon, to me, is going to have that big breakout game. He's going to go insane like he usually does. I'm going to go with Joe Mixon leading the way, because he had he had 127 and 1 touchdown last game. I'm going to go 140 and a touchdown for this upcoming game. Joe Mixon and the Bengals blow out the Chicago Bears.
Let's go. I like it. I'm on the Bengals train too, man. I do really like this team. Falcons-Bucks. This is another one that shouldn't be close, man. The Falcons last week against the Eagles, their offensive line looked terrible. Their defense looked terrible. And because of that offensive line, Matt Ryan was able to do nothing. 21 of 35, 164 yards, no touchdowns when they lost 32-6. So he lost a fumble in that game. He took 9 quarterback hits and 3 sacks. And he only averaged 3.7 yards per attempt through the air. 3.7, Levi. That, you know how terrible that is? I mean, it's unbelievable.
That's bad.
That's really bad. And it doesn't get any better. It gets infinitely worse this week against the Bucks. Start your Bucks in fantasy football everywhere you have them. I think the Tampa Bay Bucks are going to go crazy. Tom Brady's going to throw it all over this defense. There's going to be no response from the Falcons. It's just crazy to see what they've done over there in Atlanta. Maybe Julio made the right decision. I know he didn't have a good first week, but he probably made the right decision getting out of there, going to Tennessee, because he's got a way better chance. I think it's devastation time once again for the Falcons, and they're not going to get anywhere against this Buck team, especially on the road. Bucks by 1,000,000.
Man, I feel sorry for Kyle Pitts. For Kyle Pitts. Doomsday over there for the Falcons. They're going to have a bad time. Possible that Tampa Bay drops the 50 bomb? Could they drop the 50 bomb?
Yeah, it's possible. It is. It depends. Are they going to get so far ahead in that second half that it's already rest time for the starters?
Yeah, there's a good shot. I mean, Tom Brady could be done by the end of the second quarter, honestly. Yeah. Give me Tampa. Should be easy.
Yeah, that should be an easy one. Vikings at Cardinals later on. The Cardinals looked really good against Tennessee. They dominated in every aspect. I was impressed with Kyler Murray. He made a lot of really good throws. He was scrambling very well, and that's what happens when he's healthy. Don't let his size, and the lack of size, I should say, intimidate people, because he goes out there and he throws it with the best of them at times. As long as you keep him protected and healthy, he's going to make plays. And even when he's not protected, he'll scramble out and find some yards for you. So I like him again in this game. The thing for me, Levi, is get AJ Green out of the way. He's not. All he's doing is taking up space in that offense, and that's kind of what we expected. I don't think a lot of people really thought he was going to be this breakout guy, but he was targeted 6 times. And the thing that bothers me is that he is in front of Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore. He outsnapped him in week 1. There is zero reason that Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore should be outsnapped by AJ Green at this point in his career. So he needs to get out of the way, and the Cardinals need to use that young talent they have in Rondale. Christian Kirk is an underrated receiver who's great on the deep ball. They helped out that defense. Like I said, Chandler Jones, just unbelievable talent. So I like this Arizona team at home against Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, who sometimes they just kind of lack that ability to get it going on offense. I love Dalvin Cook, but last week, really, I mean, should they have lost that game in overtime? They probably shouldn't have gone to overtime. But the Bengals played them well. They allowed that to happen. I think they go 0-2, and the Cardinals get a dub here at home.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. I hate that we're agreeing on everything. So the best thing that can happen for me right now is we get tied at the end of this week, depending on how the Philadelphia plays. But it's just the obvious that Arizona, at almost every aspect, is better than Minnesota. They just are. Even though Minnesota's they've finally gotten back some guys, especially Danielle Hunter. There's just too much talent over there in Arizona, so I have to go the Cardinals.
Titans Seahawks could be a good one as well. That depends on if the Titans actually wake up. Derrick Henry was not able to do anything against the Cardinals defense last week. I mean, anything at all. It doesn't get all that much easier. I mean, the Seahawks can throw it out there. I think that this has some potential to be somewhat of a shootout. The Titans defense is very, very leaky. And I think Russell Wilson can take advantage. We saw him connect last week with Tyler Lockett. The deep ball is still there, clearly. The Titans coming in on the road. Will they finally get Julio involved, or will we see Dolphins Ryan Tannehill like we did last week? I think it's kind of a toss-up because I still believe in the Titans, but I think this is a tough one. Going on the road, the 12th man is back in full force in Seattle. I like the Seahawks in this one.
Now I can finally pick against you. I'm going Tennessee.
There we go.
I think with the Tennessee Titans, they're definitely going to have a bounce-back game because, honestly, that defense did not play that well this past week against Arizona. But, I mean, that was a freak thing of Arizona with the insane defense that Arizona was packing and with Chandler Jones just saying, hey, I'm back in 5 sacks, here we go. I don't think you can repeat that again if you are the Seattle Seahawks. Plus, for Seattle, yeah, Tyler Lockett had those catches and went crazy. We know that's not happening 2 weeks in a row. We already know that. That's what happens in the usual. DK Metcalf was probably going to go off. He's probably going to go insane, but I don't expect it for Tyler Lockett. But that offensive line is still extremely sketch for the Seattle Seahawks. The defense is extremely sketch. You have Bobby Wagner, you have Jamal Adams, and you have Trey Flowers. That's about it. Talent-wise, besides that, it's a lot of guys that are pretty replaceable. So I'm going to go with Derrick Henry having a bounce-back game and going King Henry on the Seattle Seahawks.
There you go. Let's get it to my boy DK. All right, the Cowboys and the Chargers. We talked about this game. Look, I think offense is going to be all over the place. I love Justin Herbert. He's got a big-time chance to go off again this week. Keenan Allen, one of the most underrated guys. He's good for 10 catches a week. Mike Williams played well. Jared Cook played well. We'll see what Austin Eckler can do. And we've seen the Cowboys play well, as, on top of all that. Dak looked really good. His connection with CD and Amari should be there. I think they're both going to have huge games in this one. We'll see what Zeke does. I'm like you. I'm not really bought in yet. This should be a better week for him, but we'll see. And that Cowboys defense clearly struggling. So I think it's a shootout. There's a lot of points going to be up on the board, a lot of yards, but give me the Chargers to go 2-0.
Also give me the Chargers. I'm not fully bought into what Zeke's going to do. I'm not bought into what both the running backs on each team's going to do. But if I had to pick which quarterback's going to annihilate the defense a little bit more, I know Dak is definitely going to put his points up on that LA defense. But I really just think Jay Herbo is going to have a big game against that defense, missing DeMarcus Lawrence. I think if there's a sneaky player to watch, it's not anything for fantasy. But if you're one like a sneaky player to watch Micah Parsons. I think that this is the breakout game because if you look at him and the dimensions for DeMarcus Lawrence, they're pretty close to the same guy. So I think you're going to have Micah Parsons step into DeMarcus Lawrence's role, and I wonder if he's going to be able to tear it up or not. I just don't know if he's got that same mindset and that same skill set that DeMarcus Lawrence has. Hopefully it does, and it makes life a little bit easier. But I'm still going to go with Jay Herbo and the Chargers.
My Chiefs get a Sunday night matchup in primetime against the Ravens. Baltimore, tough loss against the Raiders to start the season. Lamar Jackson has not beaten Patrick Mahomes yet, Levi, as you know. And I don't think it starts this week. The Chiefs are going to get they're going to get Honey Badger back. I think Frank Clark is supposed to be back. I'm not sure. I have to double check, but you do get Tyrann Mathieu. That's huge on defense. And they looked like certainly in the first half last week a little slow on offense, but they turned it up. Tyreek was wide open. He had like 10 catches or 11 catches, whatever it was. Travis Kelce 2 touchdowns. Clyde looked fine. So I think that they have a lot of room for big-time plays here. Mahomes looks great as always. The Ravens, they got to get it going on the ground as their go-to. They've lost their running backs. I thought Latavius Murray looked okay for the most part, but you're going to really start asking Lamar Jackson to chase some points in this game with his arm. So and I don't buy that he's going to be able to do all that successfully enough. I think Kansas City will have an answer like they always have. Last year this game was not close. So I'll take Kansas City on the road going 2-0 in primetime.
Yeah, give me Kansas City for the dub. To me, they just right now outclass Baltimore in almost every way, shape, and form.
They really do. And then we got Monday night real quick here. The last one, the Lions visit the Packers. The Packers absolutely got embarrassed by the Saints. The Lions made it a game against the 49ers. I think this is bounce-back city. Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, everybody. Aaron Jones has a big-time opportunity to get back where they want to be against the Lions. It's at home. They can put week 1 behind them. If Aaron Rodgers would shut up and play football for once here and stop focusing on everything that went down in the offseason, maybe he'll win a game. So I think Jared Goff is going to end up chasing points. He's only got one really true pass catcher. That's T.J. Hawkinson. Everybody else is kind of out there. So give me the Packers. I don't think it'll be close.
3 words: go, Pack, go. Packers by a lot.
They need that to happen, man. They really do after last week, that's for sure. There's our picks, so we'll see where we end up coming into next week. We'll take one final break, come back, and say goodbye here on the Afternoon Sports Drive.